Hello, I'm George Gonzalez and I'm obsessed with making games. And today I'm going to save you time when making network enemy attacks, specifically physical attacks. Like you want your guys to swing axes and do battle with your player. First, I'm going to show you what we're going to do. And then I'll go step by step and showing you where I save time, what mistakes I made, and what things you can do to just get things working right the first time. Okay, so I'm going to start recording on here so you guys can see what's going on. Be able to line it up. Okay, I'm gonna make sure it's in sync. And you guys will be able to see my recording. And I'm gonna show you, we have the enemy spawns, runs, attacks. He just hit the player, dealt 1 damage, and I killed him 1 shot. And this guy's right behind me, attacking me, and he ran to the closest target. So you saw how he moved to the correct target. You can see me in there. And we can spawn a ton of enemies. The main thing we're going to talk about is the running and the stopping to attack, and then going back and forth between those. So you'll see that they'll reach a location and then try to attack. And they will kill me. There's still some bugs with the logic that I have to fix, but what we're going over today is just the animation and the attack and networking that. Hello. So I had to remake this. So this part is me bridging the gap between the 2 videos because as you saw in the previous video, the animation works, okay? The first take, it did not work. I had to go fix the code, and that's what I want to share with you, the code that actually works, the final version. And then the rest of the video, all that is still accurate. Even though it's not the latest, everything in there is still the same. I only had to do a few tweaks to fix some things that I had to bring up. And so I want to show you that first, and just sorry for the cuts and the audio. I was trying to fix things and I kept making mistakes and had to re-record multiple times. And just like this, like making games is tough because you fix and then things break again and again. And so it's just part of how it goes. But I want to show you the tweaks that I made. So the mistake was that this Boolean is not networked. There's a reason why, because this is only for me, for the state authority to control the speed. The client doesn't need to know this. The client only needs to know the speed. And because of that, we need to make sure in here that the speed is updated, not just stopped. So we need to make sure that not only are we not updating the speed, but we're setting it to 0. This prevents problems with when the animation, and you'll see in the video how I explain, but basically there's no link between the animation finishing and the trigger of the speed change. And so what happens is the enemy attacks, and when it's done, it'll be into idle position. And it will move according to the speed. And if that speed is set to 6, it will run in place. So if you have a lot of times where your rig is running in place and the engine is not moving, is because maybe your speed settings are different than what the rig is actually doing. And so I used to have the speed in here, the can move thing in here, and that may have problems because the client always had this set to false because this was only on the master client. So that's the fix, is this line of code and this here fixed the sliding. And you don't see the sliding because I didn't record it. I had to re-record that video, the footage from that we just saw. So now we're going to go into the next stuff where all the tips are still accurate. It's just these few lines of code. Thank you for your patience, and we'll continue with the video. Okay, so here we have the network axeman who is going to be swinging. We went over on the last video for Thursday. We went over the slash attack, the animation, right? We did this animation. We sync it, and when the animation plays, the VFX plays. So that is taken care of. That's what deals damage. But now, how do we trigger the animation and doing it over the network? That's what we're going to talk about. And also some tweaks, because after trial and error and actually playing the game, we noticed some edge cases, and I'm going to share that with you. So the first thing we're going to look at is the chase target with the sensor and the tasks that are not in here. Let me show you. So we have the chase target. This is the first place because we are going to be chasing. And then we're trying to attack. And I have this adjusting state to take care of the in-between attacking and chasing. Because when the enemy is attacking, he'll be in a state where he has to decide whether to keep attacking or chasing. So this is where it adjusts. You can name it whatever you want, like deciding or thinking, but you need some kind of buffer to figure out what you're going to do next. Or because I tried doing it right after attacking, but there was some issues that came up with that. So so we have the chase, the different states. The first thing I want to share with you guys is this get utility. This determines whether you're still chasing or not. And the problem was that in here we have this visible count 0, so that whenever we have an enemy, or someone that we see, the enemy NPC sees somebody, it'll start chasing. It'll return utility of 5, which overrides the parameter of wandering. The problem with this is that if this ever drops to 0, it will go back to this. It will go back to wandering really fast. And so there was a problem where it would come to you and it would, for a split second, they would drop down to 0 for some reason. So this was off. So I had to make sure that this was always working. And it would change states. And so the other thing that I added is this, if it's attacking or adjusting, because in the middle of that animation, the enemy might, or the player might go to the back, right? If I'm dodging him, I might turn around and I might be away from his vision. And because I'm away from the vision or from the field of view, it will cancel the attack and it'll start wandering or it'll jitter. So there's a lot of edge cases that happened because of this. So I added this and I return a utility of 5, because if I'm attacking or I'm adjusting, I still want to be doing the logic here. I don't want to go to wandering. Okay, so that's the main thing that from the previous videos that I updated based on that. The other thing, like I told you before, with the sensor visible count, we're going to go in here and go in the NPC sensor. There's another thing that I changed in here. I decided to just not remove old entries. This game is going to be very fast paced, so the enemies are either going to attack or they're going to die. So like, let's just not worry about the old entries. These guys are just going to go in and attack. So I removed this for the sake of just sanity, and as I was debugging and figuring out where people were dying. Okay, the other thing that I did in here is we have a can raycast. So what we do is the moment we have a list of enemies, we say, okay, can I raycast to it? Like, can I do a raycast this way? And do I see him? Is he within vision or whatever? And what would happen is that when the player is like right behind the enemy or right around the same circle, it's very close. And so it would either jitter or it would go back because it would remove it from the list because it wasn't within it. So what I did is I just said, hey, if we are within 5, and you can change this, you can make this a variable, but when we're within 5, like within a circle of 5 meters, I think it is or units, it's just going to attack, or it's just going to do whatever. It's within range. Like, so if you're within a range, that means I'm gunning for you. I already detected you, you're within range. This is better than, because I had the sensor go all the way around. I changed the parameters and it would still not work. And so this is kind of like a catch-all. It's like, hey, if I'm within distance, don't even raycast. Don't do anything. We can go through and we can attack this guy if he's the closest. Okay, so that gives us like a buffer, so that, because most of the edge cases happen when the enemy's like right close to you. And so all these things trigger back and forth because there's float values that are so tight that if you have a specific number, it'll go, right as it gets to 5 distance or 4 or whatever, the distance will go like really jittery. And so this is a way to buffer that, because the distance that it's checking is like at 1 to start attacking. So this gives you a lot of buffer room. The last thing that I changed that is going to save you time is in here in the AI network controller. So this is what connects the animations with the agent speed. And one thing that I tweaked, because again, these trial and errors, there was a lot of problems with when it was getting to the sliding. Remember, if you saw the other videos, you'll see that there was a lot of sliding when it would go from transitions. One of the things that helped mitigate this is this remaining distance. What would happen, and also the jumping. This would also take care of that jump that happens sometimes. So what would happen is I used to just do this all the time, regardless. But the problem was that the NavMesh agent sometimes has a error, because the moment it activates and you enable the movement, it might think that it needs to get to the target. And so if there's a precision issue, it'll just skip and it will go straight to the target. And so if you're within distance, it will just jump the enemy to wherever it needs to be. And so this, I just did a double check and said, hey, like if I'm not, if the remaining distance is greater than the stopping distance, then we'll keep updating the position. If not, we're not going to do this. So this is something that it should have already been happening with the NavMesh agent by default, but there's a logic in the timing or something. And so this just like bulletproofs that. And you can go deeper into it, and just like when you go into the animations, you'll see, you kind of try to tweak all the little things and try to figure out where is it happening. And so this is one, those are the 3 tips that I gave you. If you want to rewind, pause, that helped me. At least that's where I found out that I needed to not clean up the code, but improve it to make sure that things were happening how I wanted it. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth between the code and your logic to try to really get to where things are the way you want it to be. Okay, so those are the tips that I changed based on previous videos. I give you the scripts. I'll copy paste this in the comments so that you have access. You can grab it. This is pretty generic, so you can copy all this. And each video builds upon this, but this is like the final version. In the next videos, I will make a mana thing where it draws from the mana, because right now it doesn't use mana. And so I want to have a mana system network where if if it has mana, it'll use a fire attack with a slash. If not, it's going to be a normal attack. And so we're going to deal normal damage or magic damage based on if it has enough mana. And so we have to do that. That's the next thing. But right now, we're just, as you notice, like we remove this, we don't need this. We're just setting the trigger, right, on attack. And then everything is based on that attack animation in the sensor. So we go into the guard AI controller. So this creates the two, again, this is a refresh from the previous. We used what Sue's game dev gave us for making script. For making utility classes, and this is the utility, the wonder, and the chase, and then it goes back between the two based on the utility, like we saw. If you need a refresher, I have the previous videos. I also have links to Sue's Academy, their videos. He goes through all this. I'm just taking what he did and then making it network so that you understand how you would have to alter or tweak your code to make it a multiplayer game. So again, a lot of things that I haven't seen. I haven't seen much networked enemy AIs. Most of the times they're capsules. And so I'm trying to show you everything from the rig, the working code. It's in my game. I'm actually able to deal damage, die, and back and forth. And so this is like something that is playable. It's not just a proof of concept. It's not just in an empty scene. The next thing we're going to talk about is the specifics. So what happens in here is when we do on entry for the chase target, we say, okay, we need the list, the last known position. So this is the enemy, the sensor. We have a detection list. We get the first one because the first one is the closest. We sort the list and it'll give the last known position. So this is for in case you want to hide. If you hide behind a pillar, the enemy still has and you still have access to his location in there. But this is so that this last known position will always update to whatever the enemy can see. If it can't see you, it won't update this. So this is good for like a delay, like if you dodge him or if you want to hide behind something and then he'll be like looking for you, he'll only know the last known position. It's basically to display some kind of knowledge, right? That it's not just like all knowing and it just like goes straight to you regardless of where you're at. So that's really nice. Sensor swap parameters, and here we swap. We go to a larger field area view for when he senses you because he's in alert mode. This is actually not a big deal. I would actually not use this and use the sphere cast that we were using before to say, hey, just like let's not swap parameters. Let's just do a field of view of 5 and that takes care of most of it because that's what this is kind of doing. Set destination, and then we start, hey, let's set the destination. We do a sample like position of the target. We do a raycast. We make sure we have the target and we set the destination to the hit position and we set it to run speed. So this is all stuff that we talked about before. Again, the same as the Sue's content. This is also the same as single player, as you notice. It's just that when we hit these things in the AI controller, we do things a little bit different in here, right? So let's go on update. So this task updates. The other thing that I might change if things get that, if you think things are not happening how you want it to be and you want it to be very precise, this task update is all single player. So this is all running, if you're running on the server and stuff, it's not networked. If you wanted things to run tick accurate, then you would have to make all these classes networked and use fixed update networked. Not the Unity version, but the Fusion, right? And so that's something that you could do, but it just gets over the top, so you don't need to, because this is going to run locally. This is not going to run on everybody. It's going to run on the player that has state authority. But this is all the single player stuff. We have the attack timer. I just adjusted it for my stuff, right? Because this is just chasing. So we only had chasing for a bit, and then we just said, okay, when we get to the distance, we are gonna set up an attack timer. We're going to change it to state attacking, and then we're going to move and return. There was a lot of issues. Again, one tip that I want to give you guys right here is I was stuck here for a bit trying to figure out why this is not working. You can see my debugs, and I was trying all kinds of stuff to figure out why, because it was jittering the attack constantly. And I was thinking that the problem with the logic was here, but what was happening is, like I told you before, the logic wasn't changing here, it was changing up here, the get utility, because this was changing it wasn't changing back and forth between these states, it was changing between this utility or this task and the other task. And so when it would go back and forth between the two, it would jitter in here because it was stuck in here back and forth. So it would keep coming back to here. So it would change and come back, change and come back. And so it's just like ping pong here. So it wasn't doing the bouncing here. This is why I say if you have a small amount of logic, right? My guys just chase and attack, chase and attack. I wouldn't really not even need wandering. I just spawn them, go to the first player that you see and just go crazy. Because the wandering kind of, the wandering is more for when you spawn them ahead of time, not when you're just like practicing. And so that's something that I could improve in my code. But the main thing is these guys are super simple, right? There's no like, it's not GTA, right? And so if you're looking for more diverse and you want more tasks and skill trees and all that, or like behavior tree, I would definitely say use Designer Pro. So Designer Pro has these behavior trees in a UI element, so you could create the UI and visually see what's going on. But sometimes that's over the top. So if you need something simple, do it yourself. If you need something more complex, go ahead. But remember the scope creep. That's why I decided to just cut it short and do this, so I could get things done. The main thing is that you get lost between where the bug is, right? Like I said, you can get lost in here and not realize that what was happening was the problem was on the other task, was in this utility. So I found that out. That's why I'm trying to tell you guys, hey, like, don't get too sucked in when you're like, this is supposed to be happening. Why is it not happening? Debug, logs, figure this out. Like, even when you think something is a certain way, just debug to be sure and make sure that it's going through the logic that you think. Don't get stuck in like in the middle of in the center, like zoom out and try to look at it from a bigger perspective. Or if you need help, that's why I have endgame devs. If you need another set of eyes, I do schedule calls and we can talk about your game wherever you're stuck and help you. I also have the community is there, so you can post and kind of get help. That's why I built that, because oftentimes, no matter how much you look at it, you might need another set of eyeballs. In here, we have the chase. So this is where I started. We had a distance. We check the distance. When we get to the distance, we attack. It was as simple as that, right? And then I added the can move. We can't move. We're not going to move, and we're going to attack. This initiates that attack, and it then replays the animation for everybody. Let me show you where that's at. So we have the NPC attack, right? So AI controller, and here NPC attack, we add that function. So in NPC, if we go to NPC, and here we have the NPC is just the bones, the thing that connects the single player version of the. And if you see the tutorial from Zeus Game Dev Academy, Zeus Academy, he has this set up. And I just tweaked it again to do the multiplayer version. So what I did is I created these Unity actions for attack, for end damage. I think the end damage we don't use anymore. The can move, max distance, set destination. And when we need the multiplayer version to know these things, it'll subscribe to it. So that's why we have here can move and attack. And when we attack, we do an RPC to then from the state authority to all, okay? And again, we don't use the end damage anymore because we have the trigger of the animation. The animation takes care of that. So it says, hey, everyone fire the attack animation, and then it does its thing. So we have the chase damage, and then we switch to here. If we're attacking, we just have a timer. This is a little hacky because this is not reliant on the animation. So the animation, so you have to say, and here we could give it, I think I give it a second when we change it. And here, attack timer parameter attack delay. So we have an attack delay and in the inspector, so I can tweak it based on the animation. So the idea is that there's an attack delay in here. And we say a second, for example, because I think the animation lasts a second. And even if it's off, it doesn't have to be precise. It just can't be sooner. Because if you set it sooner, the animation will not, it'll move before the animation is done because it will try to track or do something. So that's why we have this and the buffer. What you want to do with this is the time delay has to be bigger than the animation. That's the main, what you need to do. Because the animation, what I have, let me show you so that you see everything as we're talking about it. So what happens is the animation is super simple. Like I said, this is not like a huge thing. I'm trying to keep it simple. And I'm telling you guys, like, sometimes for when you have a bunch of enemies, the player's not obsessed with like how good it is unless you're making like a specific fighter game. But all I have is idle, walking, running, and then we have the attack. That's it. Like, it's nothing complex. It's just the guy runs, attacks. And just with this, you can have a lot. And we can branch off and we'll do some other stuff later. But for now, again, like I said, like the whole point of getting things done, that's my gift to you, or what I'm trying to get across to you, is to help you finish your games faster and actually finish. Stop scope creep, actually get things done. And things can be simple. This is a trigger attack. The attack will go here. And then what happens is in here, we just have a transition and it'll just, I'll play it. So he'll attack and then he'll be idle. Now, if he's moving, if he needs to move, he'll move. And I think I have this set it to 1.5, so it's a little bit faster. So if you want to increment the attack, you can. So it runs faster, that's where you do it. But I just have this trigger, conditions attack, and then it'll go back straight into it. So whatever the time of the attack is, that's where it'll just go straight back to moving. And if the chase skills, so if we go back to the script, in here, if this timer is longer than that, it's okay because he'll just be standing idle. And so if you want it to be more aware, you can fine tune that so it's less, and you can keep changing the flow value of what that is if you want it. But you have the ability to do that, right? And that's the good thing, is that you don't have to re-import animations. You just have the animation of whatever it is, and then you can make it faster, shorter, and then you can adjust the two. So you're going to tweak both settings to kind of say, okay, what do I like? Is this behaving how I want it? And oftentimes it's up to you how much you go into the details. We have the location. So what I do is I say, hey, like, give me the exact location. Because at this point, we're super close to the player. We're attacking. And so we're not doing last known position. We're saying, hey, we need the exact location. Because now we're going to say, hey, is this the same target? If not, we're going to go to that target. And then we're going to adjust the timer again because we're going to attack again. But we're going to do an adjust before, okay? So we're gonna adjust, we do the timing. So this is kind of like a, hey, like a buffer. If you want the buffer to be less, you can. If you want it to be a parameter, you can. I just said, hey, like, let's just 1 second to kind of reorient or whatever we need to do, right? Because if this needs to turn around and attack the other player that's behind, because this is a multiplayer game, then we can do that. The distance to target, attacking distance, the parameters, we do the same thing. So we say, hey, like, we need to know, like, are we within the same distance again? Like, is the distance to the target that we get here? We're always checking the distance every update. And so we say, hey, is this within my attacking distance? Is he still within reach? If so, let's attack him. And then we can move. In here, in this, let's say like right here, in this area is where you have wiggle room to improve. I did not go into it for the sake, again, of scope, but here you can tweak it to rotate. Like if you had a 180, it's really hard because you have to like have a rotation animation. But if you wanted to do a step to the right, 90 degrees to attack to the right and then attack to the left, or turn around that slash, or do a 180, you can do stuff in here to do that. You can adjust the scripts to say, hey, NPC attack, you can do NPC dot slash attack, or 180, do a 180. Because in here, we already attacked. So what are we going to do after? So if you wanted to do like a sequence of attacks, you could do it in here. You can keep track of the attacks. So you're like 1, 2, 3, 4. And so he'll do this, and like he can go crazy. So that's where the wiggle room is. And that's why I have the adjust and the attacking, because you can do cool things with this. But again, for the sake of scope, I just kept it simple and give you the tools and show you where the options are so that you can tweak the code how you want. Again, you have to be careful and you have to go back and forth between these settings. But if you play this video, like go back and forth, to refresh on what's what. If you have questions, let me know if I didn't answer something. The last thing that I want to give you is the detection, because you're like, okay, we have all this logic that's NPC, but how does this network, right? Because we have PVR. How does this guy detect the player, and how do we know what the network version is? Because again, we haven't talked much about how these things are laid out. But what's happening is we have this VR player, and this VR player is not the one being detected. It's actually the rig, the client version. So each player will have a client, even the host or the master client has its own rig. The visuals might not pop up, but this guy has a health component with a box collider. Okay, and this is what that enemy detects, is this box collider, and it'll come running for that. Okay, so this health component is for NPCs and players. As you can see in here, one of the modifications that I did, and let me move myself. In here, you'll see I have this as NPC. So I have these player-specific things, and this is the only changes that I made, is that there's a Boolean for things that it doesn't need, because the player has its own health and mana. This is more for the enemies. And yes, I could have done better at decoupling and just doing like an NPC component that has a health component. But for the sake of this, I just needed to get it done. This health component has the damageable inherits the damageable component, and that's what the enemy is looking for, a health component, because the health component can be damageable. And then I still have to do that for the torches and whatnot to figure out how I do the eye damageable. But this is all working. It has is NPC or not. And that is pretty much it. Like, that's how it detects the players. Okay, so in order to deal damage, because one thing that I don't want to do is have everyone be able to deal damage unless you're the state authority. So one thing we do is say, hey, is this a state authority? If it is, we're going to deal damage. And this is specifically for the NPCs if we got hit. And then we do a call outside to took damage to kind of display the health and all the other values. We're going to dive deeper into the deal damage next time, because we are going to go over the mana and all the other for the enemy to use mana and actually attack. And then we'll go over the details of the mana damage stuff, and you can dive deep into that. If you have any questions, please let me know, and we'll see you in the next video.